scientist is Alan Turing. He used to be actually kind of obscure outside of computer science, but you might have heard of him because of a movie that they made about him called The Imitation Game from a few years ago. If you haven't seen this movie, you definitely should, especially because Alan Turing is played by the same actor who also plays Doctor Strange. So I'm biased, but you should see it. Alan Turing was so influential that we often call him the father of computer science. As you know, computer science is a relatively young field. So when Turing was around in the 1930s and 1940s, it didn't even exist yet. And he did a couple of things that were revolutionary that helped create the field that we know today. So first thing, he was a code breaker during World War II. He worked at Bletchley Park in the UK. He helped crack codes that the Nazis were using to pass messages back and forth, played a big role in the war. And second, he came up with this idea of what we now call a Turing machine. Having a machine replicate what a mind can do and to do it in a systematic way. Basically, he formalized the idea of having an algorithm, a series of steps to solve a problem. And he never built a physical computer to do this, but it was behind this idea of the Turing machine, and that's what became the modern day computer. He's the one who said, hey, look, we can use machines to solve problems, and he specified what kind of problems we can solve and how we can solve them. It was the precursor to everything. Now, there's an unhappy side to his story as well. He was gay, and this was a time in the UK when being gay was actually against the law. He was in a relationship with a man, they got found out, and he was convicted of the crime of gross indecency. And as punishment, instead of serving prison time, he was chemically castrated. And so you can imagine this was shortly after World War II, it was in the early 1950s, so it had a huge impact on his career and his life both. So he had this conviction on his record, and now he couldn't work for the government anymore. So he couldn't do any more code breaking or anything like that. He just kept working in academia. He lived like this for a few years, and later he died by suicide. The apocryphal story behind this is that he had become obsessed with the movie Snow White, and he intentionally ate an apple dipped in arsenic. It was ruled a suicide. Some people have said over the years that maybe it was accidental. Personally, I think suicide is probably the most likely explanation. He was only 41 when he died. He was eventually pardoned by Queen Elizabeth for the crime of being gay, and that happened many years later in 2013. But his legacy is more important than that. So he led us to this huge innovation in computer science, and we have an award named after him. It's called the Turing Award. There's no Nobel Prize in computer science, and so we have the Turing Award that's given to individuals who had lasting and major technical importance to the computer field. It's a huge honor to get the Turing Award. It's the equivalent of the Nobel Prize. And they just announced something great too. I don't know when you're watching this video. We're recording in July 2019, and they have just announced that Alan Turing is going to be on the new 50-pound note in Britain. So that's a nice way to honor his legacy too. And that was Alan Turing, our computer scientist of the day.